So if you're driven by curiosity, if you are, constantly trying to acquire knowledge that doesn't just sit in your brain, but actually changes how you operate in the world,
Right.
that content delivery, no matter how slick the technology, is only half the battle. We have AI serving up facts faster than ever, but the core of true learning, that fundamental shift, remains intensely human.
It absolutely does. We are at a really critical juncture where technology excels at delivering information, but it fundamentally struggles with developing human capabilities,
Mm.
with authentic reflection, and, most importantly, with helping you uncover your personal why.
And that's exactly why we're here. Our mission today is a deep dive based on a fascinating stack of sources, articles, and research notes from Dr. Jeff Taylor that explore the true art of teaching and learning. We're going to give you a shortcut, really, to understanding the deeper structure of human growth by unpacking two powerful visual models: the diamond metaphor for reflection and the onion metaphor for orientation.
And these aren't just, academic diagrams. These models help us look inward and define why authentic, sustained human interaction produces this. Well, the source calls it an alchemy, chemistry, and synchronicity that sophisticated algorithms just cannot replicate.
Right.
If you want to maximize your holistic development as a learner or as a mentor, you need to understand the true art form behind this process.
Okay, let's unpack that art form because that is the central concept here. Taylor's work stresses that holistic teaching and learning needs a specific kind of mentoring that is, well, an art form more than a science.
It is.
And to really grasp its power, we have to start with the origin story for this research. The powerful relationship between the student and his professor, Dr. Morrie Schwartz.
It's such a beautifully human foundation. The sources consistently refer back to Mitch Albom's 1997 memoir, Tuesdays with Morrie. It is. The book chronicles Mitch's final, incredibly insightful lessons from his former sociology professor at Brandeis, Dr. Morrie Schwartz, as Morrie faced a terminal illness. What Morrie showed was that mentoring is about being unashamedly, vulnerably human.
And Morrie was.
Yeah.
He was certainly a character who embodied that. The source notes that even in his 60s, before his illness, he loved to dance.
He did.
He would go to a dance-free event every Wednesday night, which was mostly full of college students and young people. And there he was, this distinguished professor, teaching them the tango, helping them find joy, and just let go.
That example is so powerful because it's not about instruction, it's about presence. It's Morrie bringing his whole self into the experience. And that distinction, that's what helps us clarify the core difference between mentoring and traditional coaching.
Okay, so what's the line the research draws? Because we hear those two terms used interchangeably all the time.
Well, coaching is typically performative. It's focused on getting a skill right now and has a shorter timeline. This form of holistic mentoring, what the sources call GTE mentoring, is fundamentally different.
How so?
It's explorative, it has a long-term focus, it's not overly concerned with immediate performance metrics.
So if coaching is about fixing a specific technique, say, my golf swing,
Right.
mentoring is about fixing the foundation. It's about why I'm even playing golf.
Precisely. It prioritizes the process of learning first. The ultimate goal of this GTE mentoring is a guided, authentic process where the mentee, the learner, figures out your deepest purpose, your meaning, your goals.
And that active discovery is what unlocks what the research calls sustained motivation to learn,
Exactly.
which is directly tied to being mindful of your learning orientation. If you're constantly learning things that clash with your core values, that motivation is going to fizzle out.
It has to. And this brings us right back to Morrie's core philosophy, his life hack, that really underpins this entire model.
What was that?
It's a brilliant encapsulation of self-determination, Morrie said. The little things I can obey. But the big things, how we think, what we value, those you must choose yourself. You can't let anyone or any society determine those for you.
That's so critical. It shifts the locus of control completely inward. It says, sure, the external framework is fine for the rules of the road, but the internal framework, your personal essence, only you can define that.
And that essence, that finding of self, directly influences your deepest orientation to learning and development. If your learning path, whether you're in a classroom or a boardroom, goes against your own grain, the energy drain is just enormous.
Fighting yourself, burnout is inevitable.
Inevitable.
So the Morrie philosophy establishes the why. We have to choose what we value. Now, the sources explain the mechanism for actually discovering and using those core values in our daily practice. And that's where Dr. Taylor's first model, the diamond metaphor for reflection, comes in.
Yes, this idea of maximal holistic reflection is the process, the operational side of how teachers and students find and leverage those core orientations.
And why a diamond?
The diamond is a metaphor for value, strength, clarity, resilience. But I actually think the iceberg analogy helps a bit more.
I agree, because it shows that the most important parts of reflection are hidden way beneath the surface.
Exactly. So whether we think of it as an iceberg or a diamond, the pinnacle is visible, but the foundation is vast. And the sources break this down into 4 distinct layers of reflection that apply to everyone.
Okay, what are they?
So the level most people use is reflection on practice or reflection on learning, thinking about what happened after the fact.
The postmortem.
Right. Then, getting more sophisticated, you have reflection in practice or in learning, adjusting in the moment. Deeper still at the base is core reflection, which gets at your personal core, and the pinnacle, it's combining the two. Core reflection in practice.
Let's make that concrete. Can we illustrate this distinction between IN and IN using the professional teacher model first?
Sure. Reflection on practice is the standard review. Recounting or reliving a difficult classroom moment later that evening. You think, okay, I need to plan that segment better next time.
But if a teacher uses core reflection, they're not just looking at the lesson plan. They're asking, why did I react so defensively when that student questioned me? What belief about my own authority is driving that?
Exactly. When core reflection underpins the practical stuff, it helps the professional deal with deep-seated blind spots, or what the research calls dysfunctional repertoires, those self-sabotaging habits that are often induced by anxiety.
That sounds exhausting, though.
Yeah.
Doesn't this pinnacle, which Taylor labels core reflection in action, just add another layer of performance anxiety? How do you manage that real-time self-monitoring?
Well, the sources say it should be guided by a mentor at first, but the outcome is self-awareness, not more anxiety. The pinnacle is when a teacher becomes aware of their own biases, their mistakes, their dark shadows during the act of teaching.
In real time.
In real time. And they can make a mental note or even adjust right then and there. It's moving beyond, how do I plan better next time, to recognizing a fundamental flaw in your approach while you're actually doing it.
So if I'm teaching and I catch myself subconsciously avoiding a complex question because I feel a little shaky on the answer, and I immediately acknowledge that self-protective move to myself, that's the highest level of reflection. Instantaneous self-diagnosis.
That is the high leverage point. Now, for students, the progression is very similar, but it's focused on their learning and study habits.
Okay, let's use an example. Say I'm a student prepping for a big exam. Reflection on learning is the standard review after the test. I get my grade back and I think, shoot, I didn't study the technical definitions enough. Next time, flashcards.
Right. Purely practical feedback. And just like with the teachers, core reflection helps students deal with those dysfunctional study habits that come from anxiety. Maybe you procrastinate every time because you link failure to your sense of self-worth.
And core reflection tackles that emotional block.
It does.
So what does the next step up, core reflection and learning, look like for that student mid-session?
They realize, while trying to power through a dense chapter, wait a minute, I just read that same page 3 times and I retained nothing. My note-taking is passive, or maybe I'm just too distracted right now. The student spots the block in real time.
And the absolute pinnacle, core reflection and learning, is where they become aware of those deep-seated misconceptions, their own dark shadows, while the learning is actually happening.
And they make a mental note to address them immediately or next time. That is sustained, intentional self-improvement, and it's driven entirely from the inside out.
So the diamond gives us the mechanism, the how-to of reflection, which is crucial. But this whole machine is fueled by something deeper, your core nature. And that brings us to the second model, the onion metaphor, which is all about orientation.
Yes.
I love that the research uses these clear, simple metaphors for such complex psychology. So tell us about orientation.
Holistic teaching and learning in these sources are defined as experiences that fast-track the development of enduring, lifelong, higher-order skills and capabilities.
Okay.
And these capabilities are both the genesis of and the product of your individual nature, your capacities, your potential, your personality.
And the onion is the perfect visual for that. It represents complexity, the deep layering of our psyche. You peel away the outer layers, and what's at the core is the complete story of the individual. And when that core story is leveraged, it empowers everything they do.
Let's start with the teacher's onion, because it really illustrates how an internal orientation shapes external practice. Right at the heart, the very core, are the teacher's orientations, their personal values and beliefs about what education even is.
That orientation then guides the next layer,
Oh,
Their
sure.
subject knowledge, it dictates what material they think is important, then it shapes their knowledge for teaching the pedagogical tools they choose.
Moving outward, it influences their actual teaching practice. And the very outermost layer, the one the students see and feel, is what the sources call bringing oneself into the teaching.
That's a huge insight. It means your core orientation shapes everything, all the way out. If a teacher's core orientation is purely about compliance and standards, the outer layer, what they bring to the classroom, is going to feel rigid no matter what fun materials they use.
But if their core values connection,
They'll naturally bring their unique human self. Like Morrie dancing the tango.
exactly, it connects their internal why to their external how. Now let's flip to the student's onion. We start at the core with their learner orientations.
Which determines their deep motivations. Then that orientation shapes the next layer, knowledge and understandings. This explains why some subjects just click for them, why they're motivated to learn about certain things.
That core interest then informs the cognitive and intellectual skills they naturally use and develop. This leads to the broader human capabilities they build over time, like collaboration or ethical reasoning.
And the final, outer layer, the result of all these internal drivers, is their strategic and reflective capacities. So the insight is that your unique nature shapes the skills you use, which leads to your highest strategic ability. It flows from the inside out.
And if we connect the diamond and the onion, we see why the human mentor is so indispensable. At their best, mentors elicit and encourage this process of maximal reflection, that high-level, in-the-moment awareness, to fully realize the potential that's locked in the individual's core.
So let's bring this back to, right now, our context in 2026. With the rise of AI and humanoid robotics, why is spending all this energy on deep, human-centered self-discovery so strategically vital?
Because the machine can only process information. It can't perform this deep core-level reflective work. The development of human-centered capacities values what the source calls humanizing dispositions. That's the highest leverage point for future success. It's what differentiates us.
We're talking about competencies like personal and social capabilities, ethical understanding, critical and creative thinking, the things that make us adaptable and wise.
The very things. And Dr. Taylor's research, which comes from his background as an experienced practitioner and lecturer, and led to his Doctor of Education in 2023, consistently emphasizes that educators need support to build these capacities in themselves and their students.
It's not just a soft skill conversation. It sounds like a strategic mandate.
It is. If AI handles the content delivery, our job becomes fostering the reflective self-management, the diamond, and the core authenticity, the onion that makes learning truly stick.
So, to summarize the core message for you, our listener, real learning that has a lifelong impact has to start by looking inward first to understand your orientation. Then, it requires developing that moment-to-moment awareness to reflect in the act, not just on it, to build your highest capabilities.
It's about consciously leveraging your whole story, peeling back those layers, and understanding what's truly driving you.
And this raises a really important final question for you to consider. The source notes that holistic learning has a lifelong impact, but achieving this maximal reflection requires us to confront our blind spots and dark shadows, often induced by anxiety during the act of learning, not safely after the fact. Given that challenge, what immediate small change can you make to how you study or practice today that moves your reflection from simply on an event to truly being in the moment, confronting that anxiety as it arises? Think about that single shift you can make right now.